On this last episode of Locked On Lightning, what better way to finish things off with the guys from Locked On Avalanche? We talk about some of the stories surrounding our team as well as looking back on some memories here on the show. All that coming up and more on Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the last episode of Locked On Lightning with me, your host, Adam Denker. I am joined on this last episode with the guys from Locked On Avalanche, Kyle Sullivan, Shaggy Von Doom, and Chris Masilli. We talk about some of the stuff surrounding our teams, how our off seasons went, as well as some old memories we look back on. But first, I just want to remind you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the sports have wound down, the Olympics are over, but the deals don't stop at FanDuel because they're hooking up all customers with a booster or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, guys. So thank you for joining me on the show. I know you have very busy schedules, but what better way to end my tenure here on Locked On Lightning with Kyle Sullivan, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom of Locked On Avalanche, as well as my old partner from the Locked On NHL days, Chris Masilli. So what's up, guys? How's your summer been going? How are the Avalanche looking?
And, it's crappy now. I mean, this has been like a week from hell because we started this week with Katie Gaus, who's works for the Altitude Network, which shows the Avalanche games in Colorado. They let her go. Then we I think Tuesday or Wednesday, like Sam Rosen, my East Coast team and the Rangers, like this is his last year. And then Mixtape decides that, he's going to take his talents elsewhere. So yeah, like, no, man, this has been a crummy week.
Yeah, I'm surprised you got a hold of me. I blocked you on everything.
No, I'll do that on like Saturday. This is the last day. This is Friday. We are still colleagues until Saturday, and then you go dark.
Yeah, I'll go back on that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just gonna delete my whole digital footprint and then
man. It's like
like burner account on X and just troll Chris and Kyle for the rest of my life.
It's not hard.
You do that anyway. You don't have to have a burner account. You do that anyway. You're making me shed a tear here, man. Like this is like
it's the end of an era. I know
it is, man. Because we went way back to the beginning of this when Locked On started bringing in hockey, and then you and I hosted the NHL show for a while, and man, we would always do like there was no connection between the Avalanche and the Lightning, and then you and I became good friends through the network, and then how about that they meet in the Cup finals? Like
we talked about it for years leading up to that. And I think I'll always remember about that run facing you guys in the Cup. We did a show. It was either the week before or just before I think the Lightning clinched. And I think you said something to the effect of, you guys better effing win tomorrow night so we could finally get this.
Oh yeah.
What we've been talking about for years here. And turned out to be the worst week and a half of my life after that. But it does, this being the last episode and, looking back on that stuff. Chris, you and I really started in the trenches because it all started with us during the pandemic, just really trying to figure out what to talk about. I think we did one episode together where we just talked about our favorite comic books and all that. And then it evolved into going on Welcome from Puckburg with a certain host. And we went from there, and that's how this tribunal started.
And I've always enjoyed like just the conversations we had, and like it started with like my solo work before I became on Locked On, and like when we were coming up to that finals, it was exciting to see the two teams hit the ice, but I was really looking forward to the episodes that came afterwards.
Who was I can't remember this. Who did the Lightning beat in their conference final to get to for the
Islanders? No, it wasn't the
Islanders?
Islanders. It was the Rangers. Yeah, it was the Islanders 2
Was it the
years in a
Rangers?
row, 20 and 21. And then, yeah, the Rangers got off to a 2-0 start in the Eastern Conference Final. And everyone was saying, yeah, Igor, I think that was Igor's rookie year, or it was his second year in the league. And that's when the Igor's better chance started. And then Lightning came back, won 3 in a row. And
you know what? Because now I'm remembering it was a win-win situation for me personally, because if the Rangers went in, that's fine, because that's who I root for on the East Coast. If the Lightning got in, I got to do shows with Denker for a full Stanley Cup final. So you're right. I think it was Rangers.
Yeah, and we did our national show. So like literally, I think at the end of those finals, you and I didn't talk for a while because we were just sick of each other at that point. But
I think I wanted to talk more than you did, because
I was being a sore loser.
You were a little bitter.
I was so bitter after that, even though I'm coming off 2 straight wins.
That's what I was just gonna say. For the first 2 years that Locked On hockey shows existed, you had bragging rights.
I was insufferable.
You were. I mean, you still are. You were. Yeah, you had bragging rights.
There was an episode, Kyle, where Chris and I hosted, and it had to have been like right after we clinched the repeat, and I quoted LeBron when he signed with the Heat, and they did that terrible press conference where I was like, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. And
I remember listening to that episode as a listener, and I was like, oh boy.
And I didn't realize that was going to foreshadow how many goals the Vasilevsky was going to give up in the following final.
You want to anger Denker? Just say the word asterisk, and there you go. There you go. And it's all downhill from here. Which I don't buy into. By the way, I don't buy into it. I just think it's hilarious to watch Denker and probably Lightning fans squirm when you just say that word.
I mean, it only took me 5 years to figure out a response to that, because I've been getting that for the last really the last 4 years.
Right.
and I thought of it like literally a month ago when some random person on X tweeted to me about the repeat being an asterisk and all that. And I said, then why didn't you? I think it had to have been a Maple Leafs fan. And what a better way to end my tenure here on Locked On Lightning, because you guys may not know, but I mean, I just talk crap about Leafs fans all the time here.
Okay.
And I said, why didn't you guys win? What was so bad about that? Yeah.
Everybody was on the same playing field. Everyone
never understood that.
Yep. I don't know.
But yeah, and then it was one of those things like during COVID, I think that benefited us as hosts, because you and I never really had that experience prior to. I mean, other than, I guess, just talking hockey with other people at my other job. But that was like, I think that was really the best thing to happen for us young hockey hosts back then, because we were able to just kind of like hone our craft, even though no hockey was going on. And, at least the theme in Lightning Land then was staying up, because, Stamkos looked like he's coming back and he gets hurt working out, and he doesn't come back till the finals. And then the year later, Kucherov and Point and all that. And then everyone's giving me crap about Kucherov, basically not playing the entire year, coming back for the playoffs. And then the following year, the thing I always remember about that final run against you guys really was just how much everyone was already on the Avalanche bandwagon before the final started. And that's what surprised me. I always felt like we were the favorites in Vegas, but I felt like everybody on television, everywhere you listen to a podcast or a TV show, everyone was picking Colorado, because I think part of that Rangers series really exposed a lot about the Lightning. And look, I mean, we all know it. You saw it in the first couple of games. The Lightning were done. The fact that they pushed it to 5 was incredible.
I don't know. I think they as far as like the favorites and who had like the bandwagon, I think it was for, whoever was going against Tampa. Tampa had got to that point. You win 2 in a row, you immediately become the team that everybody hates. So it was just who's Tampa playing? I'm rooting for the other team, and then just got to the finals. And I think if you were outside of the Lightning fan base, you were going Colorado, I think, right?
And I think it was also a little bit of that entire Colorado playoff run, because that was also the too many men on the ice, the Nazem Kadri incident, overcoming that in St. Louis, like coming through all of that. And when the Avalanche got over that second round hump that haunted them for years, like it was finally that time for like casual NHL fans, when your team gets bounced, that you finally get a chance to cheer on Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar. It was just the fun, I could see the bandwagon point of view, because it was just a fun team to cheer on, and everybody loves cheering against a quote unquote dynasty. So when you see somebody going back to back, you're cheering for this cool, fun team with a lot of playoff stories. When you're looking across and seeing Tampa struggle, you're like, this is the time we can watch a big upset and finally watch these guys get what they're due.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one positive thing to come out of that, at least from the Lightning side, was a lot of us being in East Coast teams, we didn't know about Cale Makar. We knew of him, but we didn't know what he could do. And then I felt like that, at least to the East Coast hockey fan, that was like the coming out party for him. And I think to a lot of people also Nathan McKinnon, because, you another player, you heard how great he was. Doesn't get the same coverage as a McDavid. And he comes out and just plays his butt off in that series against, Victor Hedman, who I think that was the last best version we've seen of him. And
isn't that crazy, man?
Yeah.
Like not that it's the last best version of him. It's just the players that have come into the league are now, I hate to use the word like overtaking him, but as far as rankings go, the hockey guy I think just did a ranking of defensemen on like Wednesday or Tuesday, and had Hedman at 5 or 6, which is still really good. I mean, don't get me wrong, but all of the guys ahead of him are these young, like fresh, energetic, like the youth movement that's going on. Have really just gone to the top of the class when it comes to defensemen in the league.
Yeah, and I think that just shows where the league is going. I mean, it's weird. Usually when you see kind of a changing of the torch moment in the NHL between the old and the new generation, it's usually like one or two players. We saw it with, McDavid and Matthews, and then you kind of had like these players that weren't in the same kind of, I guess, class, if you want to call it that, as those two guys. And even before with Ovi and Crosby, it was kind of the same thing. And then 2021, really, you get this influx, especially of defensemen. You get Makar, you get Heiskanen, you get Hughes. I'm probably missing a couple of names, but you get the point. I mean, it's just
McAvoy.
Yep, McAvoy.
Yeah,
it's so many guys that just jump to the head of the line like right away. It wasn't like a slow progression. And even the forward position, I mean, we could probably spend a whole episode on it too with that. I mean, Robertson from Dallas too. And even at the goalie position, we could get into that as well. I mean, it's crazy how quickly things have changed since then, because usually it usually doesn't happen like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and especially with everything Tampa built, you didn't expect that window to go from wide open potential dynasty to immediately closed.
Yeah.
Would it have been a dynasty? I mean, I'm not trying to take away from those. Is it just, hey, you win 3 in a row? Doesn't matter how you do it. Doesn't matter that the two were a little bit weird. And the third one was like, it could have been. I think it's hard pressed to say that it's not.
I would have. My thing would have been with that. Like, I really don't like to use that word dynasty with a lot. I would have called it a dynasty if they were able to not only win, but keep the team together. And I don't think even if they did win, they would have been able to. And
I think you would call it not a dynasty, maybe like a shady nasty.
Yeah, probably.
Well,
but
nobody ever faulted the Dallas Cowboys and the Buffalo Bills, and they still heralded Dallas. So I mean, and when you look at recency, I wouldn't be opposed to Tampa being called a dynasty, even everything they went through. It's still hard to get. I mean, we just witnessed Vegas and Florida run off with the cup. It's hard to do. St. Louis and Washington, they've reached the cup in the last 10, 15 years, and that's it. It's hard to do. Yeah. So 3 in a row is, I don't care what the circumstances and how long the season was, it's hard to do.
I agree.
Well, I hope at all the moves they made this offseason that we'll be able to get back there. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. The off seasons that not only the Lightning have had, but also the Avalanche. A lot of moving parts, especially in Tampa Bay. I can't wait to hear from you guys what you got to say about what's going on over in Avalanche land. But first, we're going to talk about our first sponsor on today's show. And that is our friends over at FanDuel. Now, I love sports. Chris loves sports. Kyle definitely loves sports. But the playoffs are over. The Olympics are over. I'm tired of losing money on the women's balance beam as well as men's water polo. But all of you could still try and win more money over at FanDuel because this summer they're hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So guys,
really let me down, by the way.
Breaking.
But yeah. So we're talking about some of the off season that is still currently going on, which is weird to talk about when it comes to hockey because I felt like it ended the first week of July. You know, both our teams had some interesting off seasons. Mine probably more than most, considering the main storyline in Tampa Bay, which, you know what, I'm going to let you guys go first with what happened in Colorado because Chris knows me pretty well, and I'm sure he knows that I have a lot to say about what happened with Steven Stamkos and all the things that ensued from there. So Kyle Sullivan, Mr. Shaggy Von Doon, I will give you the floor.
Well, thanks for making the Central harder. That's fun.
I know, right?
That's wonderful. That's a great little treat. But yeah, and honestly, I think
it's my parting gift.
Yeah. Wow, thanks. Nathan McKinnon gets the heart, and this is how you repay us. But it's interesting. Both teams kind of had to look at their team and what they could possibly do, and have to reevaluate. Like last year for Colorado, they thought they had a winning team going into the season, and none of those pieces worked. So, looking at you, Ryan Johansson, and they had to readdress and reassess and handle it at the trade deadline. And then with Val Nichushkin going out and still carrying Gabe Landeskog's contract, they're playing with the cap. And by the way, you talked about the offseason still going on. They still have to get cap compliant. And it's the offseason still going for the Avalanche. And we still don't know what this roster is going to fully look like until preseason.
I think that's a big difference, man. Is it like you said, Adam, like both these teams have had interesting off seasons for different reasons. You know, with Tampa losing, a legendary player, and the Avalanche, like Kyle just said, not really knowing like what their final roster is going to look like right now because of Gabe Landeskog and Val Nichushkin. Those are the two big glaring contracts that are up in the air right now, and for different reasons, obviously, but we don't know when that they're going to come back. We have an idea, but we still don't know. Like nothing is set in stone. So it's been an interesting offseason. Even if they didn't have, if they didn't have the problem with Val Nichushkin, and they knew for a fact Gabe Landeskog was coming back on day one, like he was healthy enough to come back on day one, which could still happen. The offseason for the Avalanche would have been really light, you know, and you saw it in the signings that they made. Chris McFarland said that at the draft. He said our offseason is going to be looking at those minimum dollar amount contracts. That's exactly what they did. So in that aspect, it's really no surprise what they went out and did. But the two big names, and they're big names, don't get it mistaken. And as far as the Nichushkin thing goes, that's the big one because there's a big portion of the fan base that has just given up on him. and do not want him around. I'm not there because he really adds a ton to this team when he's on the ice, and you just want the human to as a human being to get right in life. But he's gonna got a lot of course correcting to do within himself and the fan base and the franchise.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I was really disappointed when the news broke of the second incident, if you want to call it that. I'm not entirely sure or informed about really what.
Third.
Yeah, really
the third. But I mean, like, to echo what both of you guys said, I mean, he's a very good player, obviously, and so is Landeskog. And it's tough for any team, whether you're in good salary cap standing or not, to be able to prepare for moments like that. I mean, really, you don't have a backup plan. You know, if it was a bottom six forward or a bottom four defenseman, maybe you could kind of scrounge something together quickly. But you're talking about two players that are really the supporting cast when it comes to your Hart Trophy winner. And yeah, it's a tough situation. And as for the Steven Stamkos situation,
well, I just want to say
it's
real
the same
quick, man,
thing.
I didn't interrupt you. Just a final thought for that. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
Say the worst case scenario is Landeskog can't come back, or he gives it a go, and then like he's like, I can't do it anymore. Okay, his $7 million comes off the books, and then say something happens with Nichushkin where they make he's like, I won't play in the NHL, so or whatever. I'm just going to stay in Russia and play.
Right.
His 6 point whatever is 3 or something comes off. You can't just go spend that right away because nobody's really in trade mode at that point in the season. You can use it more towards the trade deadline, but 3/4 of the season is gone by then.
Yeah,
so they'll be set up at that point.
Rantanen too.
Yeah,
which that comes off for next year. But you're right. So and maybe for that aspect, you have a little bit of understanding, like, hey, we got a lot of money now to play with. But for the immediacy of it, what can you do? Because nobody's going to be trading players at that point in the game, except for like maybe Patrick Laine or something like that, if you want to go get that. But who knows?
Well, yeah, if somehow both those guys aren't able to come back, yeah, you have a lot of money coming off the books. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you can't really, I think the earliest you would be able to really make a move that would benefit you would probably be maybe December if you're lucky.
When someone's like disgruntled or something.
Yeah.
Like, I want out.
Yeah. Like maybe if like, I don't know if you guys are even remotely interested in this, but it's the first name that comes to mind. If Jonathan Huberdeau, for whatever reason, is like, hey, I can't stand it in here in Calgary anymore. You know,
that could be, hey, it's just not working. Yeah. Would I entertain that? I would entertain that.
I would. But and here's my question to both of you, and then we'll jump to the Lightning side of things. But who do you think has a better chance of coming back, or who do you expect more to come back, Nichushkin or Landeskog?
Wow, that is a very good question. That's I'm going to think on it and let Kyle go.
Okay,
because his answer is easy. I know what his answer is.
Yeah. If you listen to the show, I am of the camp that Landeskog is never coming back, and Nichushkin, if he comes back, it's not going to be for long. But I believe just because Nuke will come back because November's when he can be reinstated. I don't believe Landeskog will be able to compete in NHL quality play after 3 years of hockey, 3 years of an absence of playing hockey.
It's a really valid concern. I think they both come back. I think Landeskog is going to be given the opportunity to give it a shot. And I think they are going to. I think their hands are tied with Nichushkin. I just don't think anybody wants to take him right now because it's a liability. A playoff contending team is not going to want to take him because look what he just did in the playoffs, like the last 2 years. And would a bottom team want him? Maybe that's the only direction you could go. But that's not. Is a rebuilding team going to want him too? So you can make arguments for either way for that. So I think they both come back, but I'm with Kyle. I think it's just gonna be very difficult for Gabe Landeskog to get back to his regular scheduled program, if you know what I mean. Like, I think that's gonna be very difficult to do. So I would say if you're gonna force me to pick one who I think they both come back, but who stays longer, I would say Nichushkin.
I'm gonna have to go with Nichushkin just because, like I said, I am not even nearly as informed as you guys are on the situation. But I remember one of his last shows, Jeff Merrick, he actually mentioned the whole Landeskog thing, and he thinks that what will happen is you won't hear anything from Landeskog during camp or anything. They'll save him for opening night, and maybe he'll play a shift or two and see how he feels, and possibly that could be it if things don't click, which is a wild thing to try out on night one, because if it doesn't go well, it really deflates your team. It really does morally. And
another wild thought: the last time you'll see Gabe Landeskog was lifting that cup. That's it.
Yeah.
Not a bad way to go. But
I want to ask you, like, because you mentioned Huberdeau. That's a very interesting person that you brought up as a segue into the Stamkos stuff.
Yeah.
And why I say that is because, like, it's just not working out with Huberdeau in Calgary. And Kyle and I did a power ranking show on Wednesday where we power ranked the Central. And I have Nashville right now at 3. And Kyle has them at number 1 in the division. I put them at 3 for the simple fact of, like, we have to see if this works out. Like, it looks good on paper. Any trade where you bring in guys of that stature, it looks good in the beginning, but you expect it to work out, but you genuinely don't know until the games are played and the system is run, and you see if the everything falls into place. So that's why I had them at 3, not because I don't think they're a good team. They clearly brought in talent, right? What do you think? Do you think he's a good fit there? Do you think he's a good fit with the system, the coaching staff, whatever?
I don't think he is, and I'm not even trying to be petty. It's because you look at what the rewards he has reaped in recent years. I don't think anyone really saw Braden Point becoming this 40 goal scorer, this guy who could be the next potential face of the Lightning after Kucherov.
Sure.
No one expected they would pull off a trade for Brandon Hagel, a trade for Nick Paul to get them depth. No one ever really, I think, thought that Kucherov was going to replicate anything like what he did in 2019 or surpass that. And I think that Stamkos has been really a main beneficiary of that. I mean, if you watch this team on a nightly basis, Stamkos, his biggest flaw that he has had over the last couple of years, and I think that was kind of played a hand into this whole negotiating process that went down with Tampa, is he hasn't evolved his game. We've seen spurts of it here and there, but really, and I've said it almost to exhaustion all the time here on the podcast, is that really what it comes down to is that not only are the needs and the way this team should play changing or need to change, but you see around the league, the days of really standing there in the circle and taking 3 to 5 one-timers a game, that's just not how the game is played anymore. And on top of that, the goaltenders are way better. Maybe once in a while, Stamkos will be able to catch a goalie off guard, especially if it's on a sequence where the goalie's already had to make a couple of very fantastic saves or just saves to just keep his team in it. And then, yes, Stamkos will shoot one right by him. But most of the time, they're expecting it. They know he's there. And it's, I would say 9 times out of 10, an easy save. The lateral movement nowadays, I mean, among goaltenders, really, it's great across the board, unless you're Jordan Binnington. But I think that
our
really,
fans are clapping right now.
I mean, if anyone remembers me from my extensive appearances on Locked On Avalanche, I am the only thing I dislike more than the Leafs is Jordan Binnington. So, but I think that those numbers, yes, he still has the talent to be a very good player, a good player that could be kind of a number 3 or a number 4 scorer. But I think, and some Lightning fans that are listening to this, I'm sorry, but it's true. Those numbers are inflated to a certain extent. And I think that when you see how they play in Nashville, because listen, Nashville is now in it to win it. They're not going to sit there and play the Steven Stamkos show where they're going to let him sit there in the circle and take, one-timers all day. You have Philip Forsberg. You have some very good players on this team that could score, and it's not all about him anymore. And I think that's going to be kind of not also a blow to his game, but it's going to be a blow to his ego.
Wow. I mean, so I'm just worried about how that contract ages.
I think it ages horribly.
I think so too, man. Like, I think you're gonna have a good you'll get that initial bump, all-time player in a new town type of thing.
He'll get off to a very good start. I don't doubt that. Because I feel like he's starting from scratch for the first time in 16 years. And some guys don't
taste it before.
Yeah. And all these guys know his tendencies. And I know it's a little ways down the road from here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Vasilevsky pitches a shutout that night, the first time these two teams face each other. Because I don't know if you guys caught it, but right after he signed, he made an appearance on Sportsnet to Elliot Friedman playing the victim and trying to say, oh, this was, all unexpected. It was like, well, clearly it wasn't if you already had an appearance on Sportsnet lined up for you. And I get it. Julian Brisebois kind of screwed the pooch with that initial offer of $3 million. I get it. And I completely, but I also maybe ask you guys on the outside looking in, what were the realistic expectations here? He was not going to get that deal in Tampa. He was definitely, and the only reason Hedman got that deal is because their defense was terrible last year, and they need a guy like that to stick around until they fix things. And they kind of did with Ryan McDonough, which I don't know if that's going to be a long-term solution, but really, when you're looking at what you need as opposed to what you have in excess of, it really, he wasn't, I don't think he was thinking logical. I think he was still thinking, I'm Steven Stamkos.
Yeah.
I do what I want.
Okay. Yeah. I get that. But if I'm putting myself in the position of Steven Stamkos, I'm looking around in the locker room of all of these other guys who are getting 8-year contract extensions, and you're not one of them, like year after year after year. Like, and so and then to go on to, if you went on Sportsnet and said like it was a shock, by that time it shouldn't have been.
Yeah,
because you went all these years and all these deals where you're not getting an extension, and you're going into this last year, they still don't extend you. So you got to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel here. It's like, okay, what is going on? Why I'm not getting an 8-year deal when all these other guys, I'm not saying they're not deserving, but you're trying to tell me Steven Stamkos at that point in the game was not deserving of an 8-year extension. So by the time it got to where it is, he's not going to get that money. He should have got that money. What? I don't know. When was his current contract up? Like, it's a little bit crazy to me that they kind of let it go to this level, and then it's just like, well, now the time has passed where we can really give you that maximum deal.
Well, here's my argument for all that is that, yeah, he's had a very good couple of years, the last couple of seasons, but really what it comes down to is those were the first full seasons he's played in how long, Chris?
It's true, yeah.
And I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. They didn't need him to win against Dallas. They clearly didn't. He played 2 minutes in that entire playoff run. So he raised the cup. He was a captain. It was great. Everybody cried, but he wasn't responsible for that. He didn't play a role in that whatsoever. I mean, really, he came out on the ice, and that was great. I'm glad he had that moment, but
I'm saying maybe he played a role like in the locker room.
I mean, he was still a voice there, but I mean, when you really look at the on ice performance and who was responsible for that, and I'm not saying this is part of it, but I mean, when you look at the room, like you said, and you see a lot of guys there, but you also see a bunch of leaders, and you're also looking at a guy who's screaming about money and how he's not getting it. Totally understandable. I'm all for guys getting paid, but at the same time, when you've had 3 fully healthy seasons, if you even want to call that, because I don't even think he played 82 games at all in the last 3 years. Prior to that, he was injury prone like crazy. I mean, you had to wrap him in bubble wrap just to get him from the bed to the bathroom. It was just one of those things where at 32 years old, he's starting to kind of turn in the right direction. I mean, not kind of, he did, but when do we start to see the fall off? Because it happens for different guys. It happens for different guys at different positions. Exactly. I always say, you look at a defenseman, you take his age, you add 5 years on. That's how old they really are. With Steven Stamkos, you can make the same exception. He's 32 years old. He's going to be 33. Do you really want this guy? Do you really want to give this guy whatever it is, an 8-year deal, $4-5 million? So I think he initially wanted $5 million. And do you want to give him $5 million a year? And I know the salary cap's going up, but at age 40, do you want to be paying this guy $5 million who doesn't want to evolve his game, who really, you look at the room, don't you want to win another cup, or do you want to get paid? That's how I look at it. And I think that's how really a lot of people in Tampa, especially also the aftermath of that, I think a lot of people have soured on Steven Stamkos. Yeah, when he comes back from Tampa, there's going to be a cheering, there's going to be a montage, but I think really it's going to turn really quick in terms of, the Steven Stamkos love once he gets a puck.
You're muted, Kyle. You gotta unmute. Do you think, because just from the outside looking in, it seems like, there's a lot of people that are not happy about this, but go ahead.
I think I'm not trying to solely, I'm sorry, Kyle, real quick. I just don't want to blame solely the Lightning. I mean, both sides are to blame for this. I mean, that's why they called meeting in the middle for a reason.
Right.
And that's the big concern when it wasn't really about the money or the dispute there. Like, this has to go back to Steven Stamkos to be aware, self-aware. You're going to a place that we just had the experience with Ryan Johansson, who came from Nashville, and they kind of turned on him because it was the same issues, the health issues, and you're not getting the production, and they're going and getting Steven Stamkos, who has the health issues. You're not getting the production. And if I was Steven Stamkos, I would have wanted to stay in Tampa Bay, because guess what? I have a lot of PTO time here in Tampa Bay. I have a lot of leniency here. I could take care of things. They know how I play, and they build the team around what I'm doing and taking off and just healing myself, and they'll be prepared when I get there for the playoffs. You don't have those kind of allowances in Nashville because you are the big superstar. You are Steven Stamkos. And then about 20 games in, they're poking you with a stick and saying, hey, do something. But what you're doing is enough to get you 2 cups in Tampa Bay. But in Nashville, you're supposed to be saving the franchise. And I don't think he's going to do that. So Steven Stamkos should have been self-aware and said, hey, I'm not the guy you think I am. I know I have this resume, but I'm not that guy anymore. And I would have stayed in Tampa Bay for a team-friendly deal. Like you're seeing Jonathan Drouin. He's having a resurgence in Colorado, and he's playing like he could be getting paid more anywhere else. He's staying with Colorado to really double down on his effort and show that, hey, I can do this. Like Steven Stamkos knows what he can do and get away with in Tampa Bay. I would have taken less to stay there in the comfort at his age instead of trying to be the poster guy in Nashville. When it doesn't work out, it's going to be banner headline news where Nashville went wrong. Why did we spend all this money? What did we buy here? And this is what you get.
Yeah, Kyle, use the great word there. Sorry. Leniency. If he would have started out slow in Tampa Bay, a lot of people have been like, well, you know what? It happens. In an environment now in Nashville where you're in it to win it, you're not going to get that same, you're not going to be afforded that same leniency. I think a lot of people are, if he doesn't come out looking like Steven Stamkos in the first 20, like you said, you're going to get some boos. And I don't think he's used to that from his home crowd.
By the way, he's not 32, he's 34.
There you go. Even worse. I was giving him a little bit of leniency.
Yeah. So, I feel like I'm defending him more than you guys are, because I'm just looking at his stats over the last, 3 years. So 81 points last year, 84 the year before that, 106 in 21-22. Yeah, you said he hasn't played 82 games, and like he has in 18-19, but in 21-22 and 22-23 he played 81, so he missed one game. He played 79 last year, so he's not missing a ton of games. Still incredibly productive. I get, and he's at the age of 34, so you do have that concern, like when does the tail off start coming? But it's not, I can't imagine it's going to be like this year.
No, I don't think he's.
So let me ask you this. I mean, like, are they a better team without him? Without all that production, are they a better team? I'm hard, and you're more in the know than the Lightning than I am. I'm hard pressed to figure out how they're a better team without getting those numbers.
We've struggled a lot. We've struggled a lot with that question over the last couple of months. I don't think necessarily right off the bat we aren't. Yeah, the cap situation is still a little tricky too. Only 700K and change to spend. I think though what you can say confidently with some of the moves they've made since then, and this is where I think we could end at least the season expectations and then wrap things up. But I think this team is in good shape for the next 5, where a Stamkos contract could have really could have put you in tougher straits then. I mean, you made a trade, you traded away Mikhail Sergachev, who hasn't really lived up to the potential of that deal. He had a massive injury this year. That's understandable. Can't really help that. But you picked up JJ Moser, who I absolutely love. I'm sure you guys know a lot more about him than I do. But I just love his physicality. Everyone I've spoken to says you're going to love this guy. And then on the other side of that, you got the 11th overall pick in the draft in Connor Geekie, who's going to possibly be starting this year for you at 20 years old down the center position. And that's something that Lightning fans are jacked up about because – and I kind of posed this question on my show a couple of weeks ago. I mean, would you rather have Steven Stamkos' contract or Connor Geekie, who could be your captain in 5 years and be your franchise player after Kucherov starts to tail back?
Come on here. We want Connor Geekie, and we're going to be okay getting rid of Steven Stamkos.
I think though, I mean, obviously,
last episode of Locked On Lightning.
No. What I will say, let me clarify that, Chris. Come on, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. So what I'm trying to say is that if you would have asked me, obviously, that question before everything came out, of course not. I want Stamkos, but do I want a guy making 30 who's 34 years old, as you've corrected me, making $4 or $5 million a year for the next 8 years till he's 42? Do I want that, or do I want, because if you look at the Lightning's system, they have players that could be pieces here and there in the depth, but you don't have a guy who could lead the next charge of Lightning youth. I mean, you have Isaac Howard, but there's still a lot to be proven with his game there. And then really that's it. I mean, you don't have a top guy that's coming out anytime soon. And Connor Geekie's that guy. And the fact that he is ready or potentially ready to come out this year, be it so on the fourth line, I think that in the end, yeah, you're going to miss the numbers 100%. I mean, you can't really replace 40 goals.
No.
But the fact that you have youth coming in and potential for possibly another dynasty, or at least the start of building another one, I think that's something that has a lot of people jacked up. And I think this team is excited about that. And the fact that you have Ryan McDonagh back, I mean, that really, I think a lot of these guys are relieved that he's back, regardless of how much money he makes.
Let's just be real here. You guys made this move just so you can allow the playing time for my favorite name in hockey, and that's Zemgus Girgensons. You wanted to give him his shine, and I applaud Tampa Bay for what they're doing.
Well, I don't know a Lightning fan that has not bought his jersey since they acquired him. So, but we could talk more about him in just a little bit. But first, we're going to wrap up with our last sponsor on today's show, and that is our friends over at eBay Motors. Now, Chris, Kyle, don't you hate when your car breaks down and you go buy these parts and they don't fit, and then you find out when you needed a muffler, they gave you a tire because you went to some crappy auto body shop that doesn't know anything about car parts? Well, you know who knows something about car parts, guys? eBay Motors. Okay, because with passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships like the Lightning and the Avalanche know is also what keeps your ride or die alive. Because with eBay Motors, they have everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. whether you're into speed, power, or style, like what Nikita Kucherov brings to his game in Tampa Bay, as well as Nathan McKinnon brings to his game in Colorado. You'll find always what exactly you're looking for, because eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, whether it be Connor Geeky, the 11th overall pick, or possibly Jonathan Drouin. You know, who knows?
Sure, yeah.
So, and with their eBay guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or die every time, or your money back. God, I wish we had something like that for Vladimir Nemestikov when we signed him a couple of years ago. So, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, unlike Julian Brees-Boss a couple of years ago. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, fellas, we're in the end game, as Robert Downey Jr. said in the Avengers.
Coming through the portals. Yep.
Yeah, and then Kyle's going to snap, and I'm just going to disintegrate, and that's how the show ends.
That's perfect.
And then my StreamYard subscription will be nullified. But yeah, guys, I mean, it's been a hell of a ride here on Locked On Lightning, and you know, there's been some phenomenal people that I've worked with at this network, and two of you have been really at that part of that list. And I want to thank you. Obviously, this isn't, you know, goodbye. Obviously, we're still going to.
Oh, it is for me. It is for me. You're done.
Yeah, I know. Kyle's completely. I'm dead to Kyle now.
Yep.
But
we'll meet up at a Mets game and
yeah, man, and hopefully,
because it's not fun to watch a Mets game. So
hopefully we won't get sun poisoning this time. But
oh God, remember that? Oh my God.
Yeah,
century.
But no, I'm excited to. Yeah, I mean, I always say it every year, but now I mean it. We're gonna get together, whether it be at a Avalanche game when they come to the tri-state area, or just go out somewhere. And I'll go down to Florida, kidnap Armando from Locked On Panthers, and bring him up. But yeah, I mean, what are your? You know, we just got done talking about how our teams are going to, or at least what they did this offseason. Real quick before I wrap things up, and I'm sure, you know, some of you have very opinionated things in the comments below about where this conversation is going to go. But what are your expectations about for at least the Avalanche, as well as my Lightning? And I'll do mine for yours after you guys have said your piece. So what are your expectations for the Colorado Avalanche as well as the Tampa Bay Lightning this season?
You want to go, Kyle?
I'll say it here because it's your last show and I haven't said it anywhere else. Looking at this team on paper, it's interesting, confusing, and you still don't know what the final picture is. I could say the second round, but there is a magic around this team and the fan base and the vibes that you're getting from what the players are saying, that there might be something here, and this team might band around each other and look in that locker room and say, hey, this is it. We got to do this for us, no matter if Nuke comes back or if Landy comes back. And I feel like there's some magic around this team. So they might surprise not just the NHL, but some Avalanche fans. But second round wouldn't be outside of the realm of normalcy. But I feel something special with this Avalanche team.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this about the Avalanche, and maybe it's true for the Lightning as well. I think the Avalanche are one of those, like, they're a good team. Like, you have Cale Makar, you have Nathan McKinnon, and Mikko Rantanen. You have those three guys in your team, you're going to be competitive, right? So I think, you know, the Avs have been a really good regular season team for over the last handful of seasons. I think they're going to be another good regular season team. They should easily make a playoff spot for themselves. And then I'm always that guy that's like, you punch a ticket in the NHL playoffs and then anything is possible. So yeah, you want to be playing good hockey going into the playoffs. And if the Avalanche are doing that, doesn't matter where their standing is. Doesn't matter if they I don't think they're not going to set the league on fire this year, right? They're going to be up there and be very competitive. I do think they can win the division. That's not out of the realm of possibility. But I don't think they're going to be competing for a President's Trophy or anything like that. But that doesn't mean if once they get into the playoffs, this team knows how to win. And I think having that championship in their pocket proves that they can go do it. Sure, they had a dominant team there that they did it, but you don't have to be. I mean, how many times do President's Trophy winner win the cup? So that really means nothing. To me, it's you get in there, and if you're playing good hockey and you're healthy, you can go do it again. And I feel like as I'm explaining that, in a way, maybe I'm explaining the Tampa Bay Lightning, because all of that rings true for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that even though our teams kind of look very different and are kind of in different places in terms of evolution, I very much still think that the Avalanche are a threat coming out of the West. The Lightning and them have something to prove this year. And I think both fan bases sense that. I think both groups of players understand, the clock is ticking regardless on where you are in your career. You look at Tampa Bay, you have a good mix of young and veteran players. And I think that, especially with the exit of Stamkos, I think it's nut or shut up time. You got to come out and play to the best of your ability. The big focus this year for this team at least will be enough with the slow starts. It's been an epidemic of slow starts for the last 3 seasons, and the Lightning of 3-4 years ago got away with that because they were a better team. But this year, I think the thing that has changed for this team, though, for better or for worse, I think the thing that a lot of people will look at with this Lightning team is Vasilevsky. I think that now that you're getting a full season out of him, you're going to have him from the opening gate. Even though we lost that series against the Panthers, granted, they ended up winning the cup, so you can't really be that upset about it. What you saw from the Big Cat in that series was something that we haven't seen from him really up until we played the Avalanche in the cup. We haven't seen that version of Andrei Vasilevsky in quite some time. I think we had him in the Rangers series, and then you guys broke him in the Stanley Cup final. You broke our goaltender. And I think that was something that scared a lot of people. A lot of people thought maybe he's worn down, maybe he's lost his mojo. And you kind of saw flashes of it towards the end of the season. But in that series against the Panthers, yeah, he was overrun in most games, but he had to put up the saves, and he did. And that's really what you're hoping from him. And I think that if you get that from him, this team will rally around him. And I think that as long as everyone plays the way they're supposed to play on paper, you could compete for a wild card, or even if, depending on how the division is, because honestly, you look at the top 3 teams in this division, you look at Panthers, Bruins, and Maple Leafs. Bias aside, I'm not scared of the Leafs, even with their captain change, which I think will make a big world of difference for them. At the same time, Boston's kind of taken a step back with their roster. I don't understand the whole trade scenario with Ottawa when trading away your number 1 goalie. I don't get that move there unless you really think that you got something better waiting for you behind him. I look at Florida. They've kind of taken a step back. Obviously, that's the difficult thing. You guys know, after winning a cup, everybody wants to make money. That's just the nature of the business. And I think that if the Lightning could come out and play the way they're supposed to be playing, I think you could even grab, if you're lucky enough and get off to a good start, you could grab a top 3 spot in this division, and we won't have to sweat it out going into April. Now, as for how I view the Avalanche, I think that you're going to take a look at what Edmonton did and say, yeah, we may not have the flash we once had, but if Edmonton could be a scrappy team with the best player in the world, why can't we do that with Nathan MacKinnon?
Sure.
And I look at your team and I look at Edmonton. I don't see much difference in terms of what you have position by position. Your goaltender situation would keep me up at night, given I'm spoiled here in Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Edmonton, all they did this year, other than proving that they could make the next step, I think they awakened a beast in Colorado. And I think that is really, eventually a lot of people will start talking about when you get into February, March, you're going to say, holy cow, look what this team is doing. It's almost reminiscent of what we saw from Edmonton last year.
Still can't sell you on the tandem goalie.
You know what? I enjoyed it with JoJo last year. I will say, I was a big JoJo fan last year.
Words never spoken before on any podcast.
And I'm sure we're going to enjoy Calvin DeHaan this year too.
Yeah, ain't good.
I didn't, so I hope you guys do.
Great, man.
But yeah, guys, I just want to thank you for doing this, and I'm sure we'll do more work together. And I wish you guys the best of luck, not only on your season but on your show. And be nice to the new guy, whoever it may be.
Yeah, I in all seriousness, I do appreciate that. We are the final show for you because it seems fitting with the history we have here at Locked On and what we were talking about in the opening segment. But yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a sad day because you're not going to be with the network, but we still, I mean, you and I text all the time, so it's not like I'm never going to see you again or anything like that. But I don't know. I feel like the way that I was defending Steven Stamkos, like maybe I'm going to take over Locked On Light. Maybe I have to do 2 roles here, Kyle.
That'd be interesting. If you do that, you have to dye your beard blue, though. That's all. My only request for that. But
I mean, it would work for both teams. It's different shades of blue, but
that is true.
Okay,
that is true.
Put a filter on the screen.
Yeah.
But yeah,
how does the taxes work though? Because I can't. I'm working in 2 different states.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
No, it was a lot of good.
My math can't math that much, so I'm not going to be.
Sports aren't sportsing, and the math ain't mathing.
No, but I just want to take a quick second to thank the listeners from both shows, especially Locked On Lightning. You all have been incredible, phenomenal, enthusiastic, at times mean, but I love you all for it, and I hope you follow me over onto my new show, Believe in Lightning, over at the Believe Podcast Network with Adam Denker. And I want to thank you for the last 5 seasons, 3 Stanley Cups, 3 straight finals. Well, 2 Stanley Cups, 3 straight finals, and tons of memories. So for the last time on Locked On Lightning, I'm Adam Denker. That's Kyle Sullivan, Chris Masilli. Thank you.